to have you guys with us. And this is our last workshop time for the conference. And as you know, there's one more general session after this. So hopefully you guys have been able to take advantage of some of the workshop times as well as the general sessions. And I do, if you haven't yet, just encourage you to stop by the exhibitors and to say hello. And I know it's very unique to do this virtually, but if you haven't checked out some of the exhibitors, it's really easy to connect with them. You just see one you like and it'll open up, and actually there'll be a Zoom, just click on the Zoom box and it'll connect you with somebody and kind of hear about their ministry. But it's great to have you guys with us this afternoon. My name is Asher Sarjent, and I am the Global Outreach Pastor at Cole Community and in Boise, Idaho. And I've been privileged to be a part of Mission Connection since the beginning, and have made the trip over since we moved to Boise several years ago, back every year, and was excited that I didn't have to travel this year, that they brought Mission Connection here to my computer. And so, yes, it would be great to be in person, and I'm really missing a lot of interaction I have with some friends and colleagues, but I'm grateful for technology that we're able to connect this way. And I put together this Mission Mobilizer track this year. And so we've had a good time together already last night and today. And so I'm thankful for the guys who come and shared what's going on. But just a couple of housekeeping things, and then I'll get into my presentation. I know probably most of you are familiar with Zoom, but just a couple of things that might help you in the next few minutes is, yeah, when you came in, you were muted, and I'd just encourage you to, for at least right now, to keep yourself muted. It'll kind of cut down on some of the background noise because we are recording this. And so, if you want to use this recording later, or just to know that all the other workshops as well are being recorded, and Mission Connection will send out some information about how you can get access to those. But as well as another little thing that might be helpful in the presentation here, if you're looking at your desktop, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little square that says View, and there's two different ways you can view this presentation. One is just in the gallery view, and that's where you're going to see everybody's little box, and those who've got their camera up, you get to see them. But I know sometimes people get distracted even just looking at themselves and how they look. But you can click the speaker view, and that's just going to put, in that case, myself right in the center of your screen, and that might help you stay focused if that's helpful. And I'm going to kind of go old school today, even though we're on virtual. I don't have slides to follow, and partially because I was having some issues with my internet, and I was going to try to cut down on some of the bandwidth here. But my assistant, Cindy, is on here with us, and she's going to help capture a few things. If there's a website or a book or something that I suggest, she's going to throw that into the chat box for us. But I am going to allow some time for us to do some Q&A at the end. And certainly if there's a question you've got about something I share, certainly just hit that chat box and we'll capture those. I know somebody already has shared a resource there. And so, I mean, that's a great place to just to get some information. And so anyway, I'm going to get rolling here and look forward to just sharing, I hope, what are some practical ways of just helping connect your people with the vision of your church to reach the nations. And just a couple of things. I'm going to share quite a few ideas. And I don't know about you, but when I go to a conference and I just hear a bunch of ideas, I get a little overwhelmed. And then I also think, man, how am I going to do all of this? And so I just want to encourage you, not only with this workshop, but even the other ones that you've been in, is just to pick one or two things that are going to be kind of key takeaways for you from this conference, and that are things that you're going to work on and that you're going to try to apply. But don't try to do it all. That's it. You're going to fail unless you're Superman or Superwoman. But just take several things and put some time and energy into that. The other thing, I just want a little clarification as far as terminology, and this is more a thing for us here at Cole. A lot of our families that live abroad are in what we call restricted access countries, or countries where security is a concern. And so a number of years ago, we did some terminology change. Instead of calling them missionaries, we call them global workers. And instead of like a short-term mission project, we have we call them a global outreach project. And so to help me, I stay with that terminology. So we are talking about missions. We are talking about how to have a mission vision for your church. But I am going to be talking more. I'm going to use the term like global outreach. And so just so you know where I'm coming from, and I'll say worker instead of missionary. So anyway, some of you guys I know have been on a couple of the workshops earlier as a part of this track, and have seen one of the main things that people always ask is how do we get our senior leadership on board? And yes, that is a real challenge. But one quick thing I would encourage you to do is when the recordings come available, grab Friday night's workshop in this track. Bob Barnes, he's a pastor, senior pastor in Washougal at Gateway Church, Washougal, Washington. And man, his presentation Friday night was outstanding. And it comes from a senior pastor who comes from a mission-minded church, but he was really kind of opposed to himself ever personally getting involved. And so he talks about his journey of, it took him 10 years before he left the church and went out on a mission trip, on a global outreach trip. And, to me, that'd be just a great recording to share with your senior leadership about somebody that they could really relate to, somebody that was in the trenches just like them. But I got to tell you, yeah, one of the hardest things I think as a layperson or even an associate pastor, how do you get your senior leadership, whether it's a senior pastor, a lead pastor, or even your elders, deacons, depending on how the structure is. But the reality is if you can get that senior leadership on board as far as your vision for outreach, that certainly is going to open up many doors for the dreams that you have of getting people involved, of seeing people raised up to serve, even maybe seeing some people move abroad, to giving you some pulpit time, to just supporting your vision. But I got to admit, at times it is difficult. And a couple of you guys were talking earlier just about, even the season we're in right now, there's a lot of things that are on the leadership of a church. And, our church is no different. I mean, we've been just trying to figure out how do we lead during COVID. We've had people on both sides of the political discussion, even whether we open or don't open, do we wear masks, not masks? And so, and then families just in crisis. And so how do you talk about missions when there's a lot going on? But first I want to encourage you to not give up on your senior leadership. Don't jump ship and think you're going to go to another church that is more missional. I mean, God's called you to where you're at. And I just want to encourage you to pray for your leadership. Provide things that could help them, maybe some books, like I said, a talk or a webinar, or like a workshop presentation, like from Bob Barnes, something that they can explore. The other thing, if you can get your senior leadership, if you can get them to visit one of your missionaries, one of your global workers, I guarantee that's going to change. That's going to change it. But part of that is that's what Bob shared on Friday night is that, you've got to release them time-wise, and don't expect them to take some vacation or take some of their conference time, but, give them the time to do that. Help to fund for them to go visit one of their workers or to go on one of your short-term teams. And I can guarantee you that they're going to come back from that experience changed both personally and professionally. It's going to change how they pastor, how they lead the church. It's going to help shape their vision. And it's great if you can combine it, if you've got a short-term trip that they can be a part of that ministry. But sometimes they don't have that much time to give, a week or two. But maybe they can take a long weekend or a part of a week and go visit one of your workers. And even that it's gonna shape their vision in a new and fresh way. But here again, you've got to give them some time to do that. You got to help fund it. And also for most leaders, you got to give them something to do. And it's one thing to go in like on a member care trip, and even with a member care trip, there's something for them to do. But if you can allow them, depending upon the situation where they might be going, if there's a way for them to teach, a way for them to do a workshop, or maybe they've got another skill outside of that where they could kind of lean into. That's going to certainly give them some added reason as to go. The other thing I think that's really crucial is that obviously beyond the senior leadership is you need some kind of advocate within the church, whether it's your global outreach team, a mission committee. It might be a small group. I was working with a small church a number of years ago, and was in their small group, and they started talking about how they wish they were more outreach minded. And they wish that God would bring somebody, within their body to kind of champion that cause. And as they looked around at each other, they realized that they were the ones who had that vision. And they said, well, hey, maybe we need to take that on as a small group. And so they actually became their mission committee for their church. And over a number of years, and I worked with them to kind of help form that, they really helped begin to grow the vision of the church. But it began with just having that advocate, someone within the body, whether it's you, whether it's, and you might already have a mission team, and that's great. And you guys are going to be that advocate, but it's important to have somebody who can, not only for the senior leadership, and that's part of the thing with the senior leadership is, they really want, their job is to equip the saints for the work of the service. And so if they know they've got people who can help carry this vision of missions, that's going to be a great help for them. But I think here too is you need to resource them. You need to help this team, like come to Mission Connection. And, even if you've got some of your team who weren't here, here again, having access to the recordings can be a great resource for them. Another thing before we jump into some super practical things is obviously getting folks out of their cultural norm, and whether this is going across the city, across the state, across the country, or even outside of the country, getting people out on a short-term project. I say it's going to ruin them for the rest of their life. That's for me I had some really good influences growing up, but it wasn't until my first short-term trip, just after I graduated from high school, 1980, so 40 years ago, is when God began this global outreach journey for me. And, back then you used to go for the whole summer, and but that summer in Mexico, God just opened my eyes to not only the world, but to what plan he had for me. And that began this journey through a variety of things to get me to where I am today. And that was a big part of my youth ministry. I was a youth pastor for a number of years, and I wanted to expose people to students and actually the congregation. And actually David Curtis, who's in the workshop, he was a pastor where I was at one of the churches I was at for a while, and we were just talking about one of our students that we both had opportunity to impact is now serving in Spain. And it's because of the exposure that they had through a short-term project, particularly in Mexico, where God really shaped this young woman's life. And now married, 3 kids, and she's serving there in Spain. But if you can get people outside of your community, and it in a designed way. And I know one of the folks was asking about preparation for short-term, and what's involved and what works and what doesn't. And that's kind of a whole nother discussion. But I just want to encourage you, if you want some resources for your short-term, that's something my assistant and I, Cindy, do a lot with churches. And Cindy's going to put my email address in the chat box. And I just encourage you to reach out to us. And I'd love to share our resources with you. And we would love to just give it away. And Cindy and I have met with a number of churches about how we train our short-term teams. And it's all online. And so it's really easily we can transfer it really easy to you. And so if that's something you're interested in with your short-term program to get some more information, yeah, just please reach out to me, and my assistant Cindy and I would love to connect with you. But let's talk about some practical things. Children, how do we help? And for us at Cole, and I should preface that I am extremely blessed at Cole. We are it's been in our DNA since the very beginning as a church to be involved in outreach, not only locally but globally. And as a church, they sent out their first worker 4 years into their birth as a church, and so we're 72 years old now, and so for 60 plus years we have been seeing people raised up out of our body. And so I'm very fortunate that when we get our leadership in place, they realize part of their job description is outreach. And so it's a very unique church in that way, but I know we still have a lot to learn and things we could do differently. But one of the things we discovered, and I've discovered over the years, is that mobilizing people doesn't necessarily start when they're in high school or young adults, or even when they're adults. It really begins, you lay that foundation when they're children. And so we've looked at ways of how can we help connect kids and families as well to what God's doing around the world. And some of these things I think you guys are already doing. It's like when you've got your VBS program in the summer, oftentimes you'll have a mission focus or an outreach focus. And so I know, like for us, every year we pick a project, and whether it's a person or an organization, and we try to go back and forth between something that's local one year and the next year something more international. And all throughout that week, we talk about that organization, or we talk about that couple that we're supporting. And we really want kids to, and it works out great if that worker happens to be home during that time, that we can actually get them in front of the kids. But we want to use that opportunity when we're talking about the Bible and God's heart, not only for the kids.
Asher has a bit of a hard connection or internet connection, so we'll give it just a minute.
I'd love to share this with you, is that we
Asher, you're kind of going in and out.
That fourth grade is kind of a significant.
So Asher, you may want to just take your video off.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, try taking your video off and
well, I'm not sure what we can do except to.
All right, he's gonna, he signed out and he's gonna sign back in again and see if we can get a better link. So thanks for your patience. You have to unmute, buddy.
Fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you a quick little story. So, hey guys, thanks for hanging in here. Several years ago, we were on a project. I mentioned at the front end here that we have issues with internet. It's a great outreach learning tool, because when you're on a trip, things don't go as planned, and so sometimes you got to improvise. And so I was on a project. Cindy, am I coming across okay now?
Just fine. Thank you, Asher.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. But let's, hey, let me just pause and pray. I want to pray and just give our technology to the Lord. And so this will connect the rest of the time. But Father, we just give our technology to you. Just pray that the Zoom call will stay connected, and at least on my end. And so I give it to you, and I know that you want us to be able to meet together in the next 45 minutes. So I just pray that everything will work well. And I thank you for this, and I pray in your name. Amen. But no, we were on a trip in the Philippines, and we're doing a children's program. We were actually at a conference where they had brought, this organization had brought all their Asian workers together. And so we were there to kind of do a program for the kids. And this was back in the days when VeggieTales was a big thing. And one of the things, we're in the Philippines, and one of the things that is pretty typical there is that, you know, you can't depend upon the electricity. And lo and behold, it always seemed to go out right when we had a little video, right when we were introducing the Bible story for the day. And so after the first day of depending on the video, we realized this really isn't what we got to do, because we can't depend upon it. So fortunately, we had these little Larry and Bob puppets, you know, the tomato and the cucumber. And so our folks just took these two little puppets and right away and started watching. Instead of watching the video, they used the puppets to introduce the story every day. And we didn't have to depend upon the electricity. So anyway, that was a great lesson for us at the time. It's a good reminder for me that you always need to have a plan B. So except I don't know what my plan B is if my internet drops off here. So, but anyway, hey, going back to your kids, what I was saying is that we discovered that in the fourth grade year for students is when often they make significant decisions. And so not only that decision about following Christ, but what are they going to do as a follower of Christ? And so we had some folks in the church that developed an outreach curriculum that we teach during that fourth grade year in our Sunday school class. And here again, like I said, I would love to make that available to you. If that's something you think would be a great resource, just email me and I can send you a link for that material. Some other things I think what helps with kids is to actually connect them with workers. And I don't know how your churches are designed with the workers that you support, but we're one where we don't have like a lot of workers. We have 19 families that we support, which might seem like a lot, but you know, I know some churches, you know, support 20, 30, 40 workers. And so we've taken each of our 19 families and have divided them up to each of our Sunday school classes have a worker that they connect with. And so our Sunday school teachers have a little board that has some photos of them, has a little bit of story, and the Sunday school teacher will at least once a month talk about that worker. I think another really cool thing, especially today with technology, is you can connect kids with the kids of your workers, with the children of your workers, whether it's via Zoom. You could do the old school by writing letters, but certainly they can email it. And obviously you want some parental supervision with this, but you know, kids can connect with one another and talk about life and how things are different. And certainly from a distance, but also when they're back home. And I know when our families come back, you know, one of the hardest things is for their kids and their young adults about how do they integrate back into life, because maybe it's been 2 or 3 years since they've been there, or maybe you know, they only are at your church for one Sunday. And so, you know, helping your kids to reach out to their kids ahead of time can really help them integrate back in, whether it's attending youth group or coming to Sunday school with them. But I know it can mean a lot to children of workers that not only our adults are reaching out, but it's really cool when the kids are doing that. You know, another thing that you could do is we've had sometimes your Sunday school teachers they themselves are going out on a short-term project. And Cindy and I together were with a group in Italy, actually a couple years ago. And we had a couple Sunday school teachers with us. And what they did is they actually Zoomed back in with their Sunday school class. And actually they brought all the kids together. And these two teachers were talking about what they're doing. They introduced them to some of our Italian friends. They took some questions from the kids. And it was just a special time because they really loved these teachers. And here again, they had a great cultural lesson because they did some cultural stuff with them. But as well as just to see them on the other side was really pretty cool. You know, I think another way that you can involve your kids is we try to have a trip that is family oriented, where you know, a whole family could go if they want, or a mom or a child. And so we've got one trip that we go to Japan, and it's actually designed, it's a VBS, and we're connecting with an international school there, but it's designed for children to go as well. And one of the things that's happened, and this happened really on its own, is that some of the kids said they wanted to help send one of their friends from the Sunday school class on this trip. And so they put together a little fundraiser. They did some crafts, and we had an opportunity there on a Sunday morning where the Sunday school kids had their crafts out, where they're selling them, and for people to help raise money to send some of their classmates to Japan. And it was really pretty cool, because here again, not every kid had the opportunity to go to Japan physically, but they had an opportunity to go through these other students, and they were a part of getting them there by this little fundraiser. The other thing is, obviously, if you can think of ways to connect children to opportunities in the community. I mean, no matter what size community you're in, and granted, some of you guys might be in a really small and there might not be opportunities, but there might be something in a neighboring town. But if there's ways that you can help provide opportunity for families to give their kids exposure to service opportunities, with an idea, here again, you want to frame this within a biblical context, that you're wanting to help them to look beyond their world and to see the needs of others. Not only is it a great experience for families, but for kids too. And, we've all heard stories of how God's gripped, students' lives and kids' lives, and how they have wanted to raise money for something, or how they've wanted to give away something. But, here again, it's just helping parents to involve their kids in things can be very significant. And to me, these are those small things that can help shape, no matter what size church you're in. If you get a lot of kids excited about outreach, it's gonna be the ripple effect with their families. And then as their families talk within their small groups or their Sunday school and so on, it's going to have a ripple effect. Another key thing, let's say beyond our kids, and the same kind of things apply to students. And especially today, students are very motivated by the injustice that they see around them. And so if you can give students an opportunity to reach out, to do something for somebody else within the community, to maybe expose them to some different groups that are in your community that are reaching out with the gospel, but also in practical ways. Here again, that's gonna be really impactful for them. One of the things we do as a whole church is we have a thing called Wake Up Boise, and it's a time when it's really the non-faith community that started it, but we kind of picked up off of that as a church, and we do a Wake Up Boise for, and our youth kind of started it, but it's spread to the whole congregation, where we have involved our small groups. That in the fall we have a Saturday where, or sometimes it might be a Sunday afternoon, where we gather, we share a meal, and then we go out into the community. And here again, it's just an opportunity for kids to see about service. And yeah, we do rake up some families in the church, but we, the vision's grown where, there's just other people who reach out to us. But another thing that can be helpful is, and I think this is where, for everybody, they can be involved in some way in praying for your work and for your workers around the world. And I know one of the gals, when we first got on, was kind of wondering how, she was saying how they hear from their workers and as a mission team. And, she feels like, how do we get other people in the body to hear about it? And, for us, one of the things that happened because of COVID was that we asked that same question. How do we connect our workers with people in the body, knowing that some of our families who are planning to come home are not able to do that right now, and we're not quite sure when that's going to work out for them. And so actually we realized that people are very comfortable with Zoom. Yeah, I know we're tired of it, but yet on the other hand, what a great resource that's been provided for us. And I think we talk about the early church and how the gospel went out at a unique time because of the Romans. And even though they were, the early Christians were being persecuted by them, but yet the Romans had created these roadways, these pathways of connecting communities, and made it easy practically for the gospel to go out, because there was a pathway for those early missionaries to go out. And I think God provided that same thing for us here. And so we started doing what we called Zoom prayer with our workers. And so we do it on a Sunday morning. We do it twice a month. And we've just invited people to a Zoom meeting. We keep it to 45 minutes, and because it's before our first service. And we have one of our workers there. They share for about 15, 20 minutes of what they're doing. And then when they share some prayer requests, and then using Zoom, we break up into small groups and we pray for them. And that has been, people's feedback from that has been so encouraging, because they've been able to connect in a real-time way. They're getting fresh prayer requests, and actually and then plus, since we haven't been able to, we have been meeting recently as a body, but for months we weren't meeting as a congregation, so people had a chance to see one another. And so I know that's something we're going to definitely carry on after COVID, providing these opportunities for people, not just when our workers there, but when they're not there, to just have a Zoom prayer time with them. Another thing, one of our we started actually kind of before COVID hit, is what we call a virtual prayer walk. And that's where we have one of our workers who has agreed to kind of walk their neighborhood, and using Zoom, they're just on their cell phone. They walk us through their neighborhood. And, here again, we just invite whoever to want to come on this virtual prayer walk. And in a real-time way, they can walk the neighborhood where this worker lives. They can visually see their community. They can stop and pray together over a particular area. But as well, you can even expand this even bigger and make it like a short-term mission trip, in that you can allow a little bit more time than that, where maybe you can get some of the nationals that you'd be working with to share. You can look at a project that they're working on that you might have been a part of. You can hear from not only the worker, but some of the people they're working with, and could be a great way, here again, just for your people to connect with a vision, and whether it's individuals or a group that you support. Another thing is actually, here again, is being strategic about maybe praying together during a certain time of the year. And this was another thing we did during COVID here, is because we have quite a few of our families are in a Muslim context. And so the 30 some days before for Ramadan, we actually, a couple of our workers, we prayed together. We did a Zoom call here again, where a small group of people just came together with the worker, and very strategic. They were praying for this worker's Muslim friends, those that they were reaching out to, just praying in general for a movement of the Spirit within the community, within the Muslim world. And here again, because that's what the Muslims are doing during those 30 some days, is that they're setting aside a unique time to pray and to fast. And so we joined with our workers in doing that. Another thing is just providing your body, thinking about prayer, ways that they can connect with prayer requests of what's going on with your workers. We put together actually a little monthly guide. We ask our workers to give us prayer requests, and we put together a little booklet that's made available in print if people want it right now. Since like when we weren't meeting, we were sending it out electronically. And then those requests we also put in our bulletin each week, but then we also push them out on our social media platforms. And here again, it's a way for people to connect with your worker, not only to pray, but to get more of a real-time request for what's going on or special occasions. And here again, I think this is just where our digital world has opened up some doors, and that we can connect more in a real time. But yeah, providing tools for people to connect with your workers, to know what's going on. And I think that's another thing. I don't know how your folks at your church know about your workers, or know about your vision, or where you're connected. Oftentimes churches have got a a world map up there, and they've got a little dot with their workers, and maybe there's a picture of them and a little description. We've got we've got a board that's got little slots where we put the workers' monthly prayer letters are there, so people can grab those if they're not getting them. And we've got some other resources and that's available for people to grab. But here again, I think you've got to create those points where people can connect and to get some information. But I should say with this too, one of the things you want to be careful is that, especially if you got folks in a restricted area, that you do need to be careful about what you post publicly. Because even like for us, our bulletin, like I mentioned, or these prayer guides, we don't post that for the general public. So like when our bulletin or those announcements go online, we remove the prayer request, even though they've been censored and edited. But we do want to protect our workers. And then in our social media world, we do have a Facebook page for our outreach, but it's a private page. And so therefore we can control, and it's more secured with the information that's there. And because you have to request to join it, and we can kind of protect that information a little bit better. Hey, another great tool for you guys as far as prayer, there's a ministry called Prayercast, and it's I believe it's prayercast.com, but they produce like 2 to 4 minute little videos that it's featuring different countries or people groups or religions. And they have someone from that country or that people group or that religion that they're praying. And they're praying over their country or their people group. And I've used these numerous times as just as an educational piece. I've used them in our prayer time when we want to have a specific focus. I mean, they're very engaging because you're getting all the senses, because you got the visual, you're hearing, you've got someone from that native tongue who's praying, and they're very insightful to give you a glimpse into the challenges that they're having, and they're free. You can either watch them online or you can download them. But here again, it's a great tool that you can use, whether it's in your small group, whether they're whether you use it on a Sunday morning, however you might want to unpack it. Hey, a couple other things here. Here again, I think just providing people opportunity is that, you need to give people opportunity to get outside of the four walls of the church. And I know all of us have got organizations in town that would love to have some volunteers. And something I did a couple of years ago, since I was new to the church, is I kind of wanted to find out what are people engaged in locally, what kind of grips them. And so I just sent out a little survey and asked what people were doing in the community. How were they connecting? What groups were they connected with, and how they were connected? And man, I was amazed of how diverse our people were serving. And these are ones that we as a church were not necessarily connected with, but they're ones that kind of fit their passion. And that really helped me to see where people were at, helped me to get an idea of what people were doing, but also to know how we could connect other people to what they were doing, as well as giving these folks an opportunity to share. And so we did a little mission, an outreach event where we had a number of our workers were in town, like a mission conference, a little mission conference within our church. And I sent an invitation to all these folks who were these groups, and just said, hey, come represent what's going on here locally. And here again, part of my job is just connecting people with opportunities, but in that, I think you can then walk this journey with people and helping mobilize them, because as they begin to open their heart to serve other people, you can help shape that for what they might do beyond that. But there's a variety of groups within your community, whether it's a rescue mission, you might have a men's and a women's shelter, there could be prison ministry. For us here in Boise, and I know a number of communities, we're a refugee resettlement city, and so we have a lot of internationals not only because we also have a university here at Boise State, so we do have a connection with the International Student Ministry, but we also have quite an extensive refugee ministry because we have these folks who are coming as new Americans. And what a great opportunity for us as a body to, we don't have to go to the nations have come to us. And so, and I love it when we see one of our families kind of adopt one of the refugee families. And it's amazing just to help them transition to life here, but as well as to love on them as well, because the majority of them are Muslims in our context here, and just a great opportunity to share the love of Christ, first in practical and very tangible ways, but then it can move beyond that to share verbally the gospel of Christ. Maybe you've got a crisis pregnancy center. You might have some medical or dental clinics that are in your community. I know there's food type ministries. Maybe your church has one or some other. And here's one I've got some friends who they really do see this as a ministry. They giving blood, and here again, it's a way to serve others by giving some blood. But I know you might have some faith-based ones as well. I know we're fortunate here in the Boise area. We've got Mission Aviation Fellowship. That's just a couple cities over, and MAF is, there's great opportunities there. We've got like Love Inc. We have another group called Hands of Hope. It's they take donated medical equipment and send it around the world, but they're always looking for volunteers. But here again, what I'm trying to help you do is kind of see outside the box as far as opportunities. To mobilize people, I think the big part is getting them into service. And so if you can just help provide opportunities for people to look at what's might be right next door to them, and particularly if you can see for ways for families to do things together, it can be really significant. Hey, a couple last things here, and then we'll take some questions. I mentioned this a couple of times, but I think it's important to try to connect your workers, the people you support, with folks in your body. And I mentioned like that Zoom prayer thing. Another thing I think for us has been really helpful is that our workers each all have what we call a senders team. And there's a book called Serving as Senders. And what this is this group is not, when we think of senders, we think of people who give financially. And yes, a lot of these folks do give financially, but it's more importantly, it's a small group, somewhere between 5 and maybe 15 people. Oftentimes they're couples, but they just come alongside this couple. In our case, before the worker leaves for the field for the first time, I want them to have this team together, and they walk through their support process together as they're raising support. They help get them to the field, and then they continue to pray for them when they're out. They can be a resource to if they're going through a tough thing, whether it's with their kids or their marriage, they could be a resource to connect and to encourage them. And then when they come back on their home assignment, this group can help them transition and provide some of those logistics. And so for me, when I look at mobilization, I invest in the leader of that team. And that leader of the team has then got, 15 maybe people that they are kind of shepherding in this group. A lot of these guys eventually try to make a trip to visit the worker that they're supporting. Maybe there's other things that they do, but for me, it just expands that vision of outreach by mobilizing some other people to come alongside some workers. And I mean, that's been, I think, one of our strengths over the years. It's just seeing these guys. And actually this morning I was on a call with one of those teams because one of our workers is kind of going through a tough time. And we just got together to pray for them. And so this is outside of our mission team. It's outside of the general body, but it's people who are a little more intimate knowledge of what's going on with these folks. And we just had a good hour together praying for this family. And for me, that's mobilizing. I've mobilized people to pray, to connect. And a number of them over the years have served together in a short-term capacity. Hey, I think the last thing kind of practically is just what we're doing today. Is if you can get exposure to people at a conference, at a webinar. I mean, today there's so much free content out there, and just about any topic that you are working through. and thinking about mobilizing people, there's a free resource out there on the internet for you. And yeah, so I would make available, to folks about these recordings from Mission Connection. There's another, I think, it's been mentioned probably in other settings here as well, as the perspectives class is just a great tool that's not only can be done live in your community, but they do. They've been doing it for several years. They do it online as well, and so that's just another great tool to help raise mission awareness, but also just to mobilize people. And one other thing, there's an organization called MissionConnexion. And this is something that costs a little bit of money. It's a membership thing, but it is it's actually the largest network in North America of not only churches, but as well as mission agencies and organizations. And they and it's the fee is kind of based on the size of your church, and it's not exorbitant. I mean, we pay, I think, $100 a month. $100 a year, sorry, $100 a year, but they have just great resources for the church, from weekly webinars to they have once a month, they have mission leaders. They have a call for mission leaders. They do a conference. They have some smaller things, but it is kind of the premier especially in North America, the place to get kind of who's who in the mission world, from agencies to churches, and they just have a ton of resources there for you as a church leader to draw from. So hey, we've got about 15 minutes left here, so I'm gonna stop talking and kick it out to you guys to see if you got any questions, comments.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you've got a question.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah, hey, Asher, question that comes to mind. What kind of process have you guys been able to put together to take someone who says, hey, I think I'm called to a missionary, to helping send them to the field? What does that look like for you guys? Just when somebody out of the blue is kind of like, hey, we think we're called. Okay. What does that look like? Yeah,
well, first, here again, like I'm saying, we're a very outreach focused. And so like, actually, when I came on staff at Cole 5 years ago, that was one of the first things. I had three kind of major projects. One was to kind of put together a process for future workers. And so actually, I'd love to send that to you, because it'll, that'll share more than what I can do here just in a couple minutes. But I think the biggest thing, David, is just an intentionality. And each of our staff, from our children's to youth, we're all looking for people who have an interest in outreach. And so we're working together to identify those. But here again, it's just, I think, providing opportunities for them to have exposure that fits the particular age group. And actually, we've kind of put together, and this was something before I came here, but we have, I'm trying to think, descriptions of what would a mission-minded fifth grader look like. And so we have kind of some descriptions for that. And then we have, what are some things that you can do to help them become mission-minded? And, here again, I would love to send these grids off to you, because we've got from children to youth to young adults and adults. And so it's got not only a description, but it's also got some practical things that you can do to help them become more mission-minded. But then, from there, David, for us, we've got criteria that we're looking for. And so then we look at how do we help them kind of meet some of that criteria, whether it's, especially a little bit further along in the process, whether it's education or experience. Yeah, so that's kind of a quick summary. But yeah, I'd love to just send that to you, David, if you'd like. So
yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. Good question. Somebody else. Yeah, and Cindy, I don't know if there was something in the chat box too that I might have missed. So
Not really, just some
Okay.
questions that I've been able to answer, or just request them to send an email to you to request these materials.
Okay, great, thanks. Somebody else, a question about mobilizing your church, your people.
Asher, could you expand upon how to get your senior pastor involved, build a fire under him?
Yeah. Well, good question. But first is I said this at the beginning is one, don't give up on them, and to pray for them. But also, I think you have to be very sensitive to what's on their plate, and I think it's important to hear their story. Obviously, they probably have heard your story. They've heard what you're passionate about. Ask them what they're passionate about. And I think you'll find most leaders, they believe in missions because, they read their Bible. They know we're commanded to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. I think the biggest thing is just listening to them, seeing what's on their plate, and then seeing how you can take some things off of their plate. And when you think of, and I think be realistic. We're a larger church, and I realize outreach isn't the only thing we do. We need to have a ministry. And so I realize I'm going to have my seasons times when there's going to be a little more outreach focus, but also I want to support the other ministries of the church too. And I want to make sure that they get their time. And so I think the biggest, just knowing senior leaders is that if you can come with some solutions instead of just problems, and I think the biggest thing is just to listen to them, and to really listen, and to pray for them. That is significant. And I'll tell you, as a pastor, it's hard to have good friends in the ministry, and the higher you get up kind of in that authority, it's even more hard. And I think if they know you love them, you care for them, you want to support them, and you value what they value, that's going to go a long way in you being able to share where your heart is. And then I think then it lays that foundation for to have some real open conversations about how outreach can be more of a focus at your church. And whether that's your senior leadership, whether it's, sometimes it's your elders, your deacons that kind of set that tone as well. And I think it's kind of a similar thing of just understanding the demands that are upon them, and not being that squeaky wheel. Sometimes you got to be the squeaky wheel, but I think sometimes you need to know you're going to be that Aaron that's going to be holding up their arms and to say, hey, we're in this together. And granted, that can take time. It does take time. But then, there is that reality. You might get to the point where they are, their point of view is not going to necessarily change, or it's not going to totally align with yours. And then you just got to kind of figure out how you move, how faithfully you're going to move forward from there. So.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, bud. Okay, I think we got time for maybe one or two more questions or comments here before we wrap up. Hey, I'm okay with silence, so don't. I learned a long time ago that you got to give people a little bit of time to process. And if you haven't figured it out, down in your left-hand corner, you see a little mic, and it should have an X across it, which means you're muted. And if you just click that, that'll unmute you if you want to jump in here.
I just want to tell you thank you. And I took about four ideas that I can take back to our missions team. I thought they were helpful. I'm looking forward to those resources. So I'm sure that God's speaking to you today, just to encourage you.
Good. Well, thanks, Sharon. I appreciate that. I'm glad you found something practical there for you. Well, hey, good. As we wrap up, yeah, I'm really, guys, I'm serious. If there's something that we could do to help you, email's the best way to catch up with me. And I would love to share anything that I've learned, because actually a lot of the stuff I've borrowed and have taken from other people. So I think that's all part about the kingdom, is us sharing together. So if there's anything we can do to kind of help you guys, would love to do that. I mean, the gift, one of the gifts the church has given me is a freedom to be a resource to others. And so, and not that we've got it all figured out, but I've got great friends around the country that I can connect you with as well. And, you know, possibly even in the communities where you're at. So, hey, again, guys, thanks for hanging out with me this afternoon. And we're going to end here a little bit early. I always think that's really good when you get done a little bit early. So blessings to you guys. And I just pray that as you wrap up your weekend here after this next one more session, that this weekend's been impactful for you, particularly in the format that we ended up having to do it. But just be knowing, I'll be praying for you guys in your ministry. And man, it'd be amazing to see that God raises up some laborers and some churches more passionate about missions as a result of this weekend together. So, hey, have a great afternoon, guys. It's good to see you. Lord bless. Hey, Cindy, can you hang on there for 1 second?
I figured you'd want to.
Okay, hey, thanks. We'll kind of wait for people to jump off. Was there anything in the chat that we might need to grab that, because the chat thing saves at the end, so I'll have the note, I'll have it. So
the only thing that was worth saving, or not worth saving, but we saved was Danny left her email. She's with SOE. And what I did is I sent an email to her and copied you on it, asking what information she wanted you to send her. And so that's already been taken care of.
Okay, cool. Thanks for doing that. So,
no,
and I was grateful to have you there just to push out that stuff and stuff. So,
not a worry.
Okay. Well, I mean, this was the largest turnout out of the 4, so that was really encouraging. So I hope that was helpful for people. So good. Okay, so I'm going to sign off. We'll see you next week, I guess. So
all right, I'm going to stop the recording and we can go from there.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. I guess I didn't realize that was still going.